Let's talk RV generators. Mine will not start, and I'm going to walk you through a really detailed kind of troubleshooting process from fuel to spark to air to all the stuff. And the cool part is the solution we discovered is free, and it might be free for you too. So if you're new to the channel, my name is Thad. This is Off Grid Dreamers. Without further ado, let's take a look under the hood and see if we can't figure out what's going on with this generator. Maybe it'll help you too. All right, we've got the Onan QG 5500 evap. I'm gonna pop the cover off and show you a couple of important things you need to know about before you even start troubleshooting. So let's get into it. Hi, bud. So when the generator wouldn't start, the first thing that I thought of was a faulty fuel system or fuel filter. And so I went to purchase a new fuel filter and discovered that this particular model comes with two options, and it depends on if it's carbureted or fuel injected. So one of the first things you want to know before you go shopping for parts is, are you carbureted or fuel injected? Here we are carbureted. Here's our fuel, the bowl on the carburetor, electronic controls for the choke mechanism up here. And so I put the correct fuel filter in, and that still did not seem to make any effect. So now we're going to start just kind of working our way backwards, see if we've got spark, see if we've got fuel, and then go from there. All right, so when the generator turned off originally, there was some flashing lights both in the instrument panel on this start device inside the coach, and then out here on the device itself. So you can look these up, and there's lots of videos out there that show you how to determine how many numbers are indicated, and then you can research on the internet what the number is. So if it's a 23 or a 33 or whatever the number is, you can see what the code is. Unfortunately, the code that we're getting is reported on the internet as basically a stopped running for some unknown reason, which is entirely unhelpful. Now, as I have tried to start it again here a couple of times, what I've come to figure out is it seems fuel related, because when I prime it, hold this down and go to prime it, the fuel pump seems to be pumping. When I first did this just a few minutes ago, I could hear some kind of variation in that noise, kind of like fuel changing pace. And I gave it a good long prime to make sure we had fuel pressure built up, and there was not any issue there. And then when we go to start it, it fires, but doesn't act like it wants to stay running. Kind of giving the indication that it immediately runs out of fuel. And my first attempt this morning when I did this series, it did fire and run for 30-45 seconds, so it definitely has good ignition. So I think we're going to go trace down a fuel problem, would be my guess. Possibly carburetor needs cleaned, maybe rebuilt, fuel filter's been replaced, maybe it's a fuel pump issue. The fuel pump sounds like it's running, so we'll dig in and see what it is. Okay, so just taking the air box off to gain access to the carburetor and fuel lines. When you take the air box off, you've got the two main screws or bolts in the middle, and then two nuts on the face of the carburetor. And when you take it off, be careful to keep an eye out for that gasket that's in behind there, and it's going to want to fall off, so don't lose that and let it get all dirty and messed up. Throw all my stuff up here. Now we have access to this, so I'm going to take this fuel line off, and then we're going to test it to see if when we prime it, if we for sure have fuel coming out of here and it's not a fuel pump issue. Next would be a carburetor dirty issue probably, but let's see. So I kind of just cheated. Rather than trying to pull that pre-clamped clamp off there, because I don't have another one handy, I just pried it down and popped it off, and I'll do the same thing to put it back on. Shouldn't be an issue, but not a good sign that I pulled this off and there is no fuel and no fuel in sight, which doesn't make me think I'm getting fuel there. So I'm gonna hold this out here, out of the way, hit the prime button, and see if we're making any fuel pressure. Well, I think I found my problem. Now I just got to backtrack and see what it is. Kind of acts like it's cavitating, like it's got air in the line. Okay, laying down underneath the RV here. Underneath, you can see obviously where we are in relation to things. Here's your hitch out there, directly underneath the generator. In this particular model, here's your fuel pump, here's your fuel filter, which apparently there are two different filters. Remember that if you're fuel injected, this filter is different. So make sure you buy the correct filter to go with your application. I've already pulled the clamp loose and back off of here. And I pulled this hose off and I have no gas to here at all. And I was expecting I would have some gas leaking out of here, and just went and added another 5 gallons to the tank just to make double sure that we've got plenty of gas in the tank. I'm going to pull this off again and just see if we've got any pressure from the tank working its way this way, and then just keep troubleshooting. We are lucky enough to have a toy hauler, which means I actually have a garage that I use as a garage. We've got bikes hanging, tools. I do chainsaw carving, so we've got a chainsaw cart here, and I've got a whole rolling toolbox bolted to the floor back here. So most of the time I have the tools I need, including this cool little blower. So I'm gonna kind of go see if I can use this to make a little pressure in the tank, force some air out of that line, see if that, cross our fingers, see if that's the easy solution. All right, I'm actually crawling underneath the fuel inlet reservoir here. I want to show you something real quick. I've got an idea on how to stop the air from escaping so I can actually build pressure. Check this out. All right, so this side is allows air to escape back out. So as you're filling this up and the air is being displaced in the tank, it can come back out of this line and escape so that the tank will fill without expanding. But I don't want that to happen right now. So I'm gonna take a pair of vice grips and I'm gonna clamp this hose so that I can pinch it off so air won't escape. And anytime you clamp a rubber hose, you always want to use a little bit of cardboard around it, or a rag or something, so that the sharp teeth of the vice grips don't clamp and cut the hose. So even though this one's just for air, I still want to be careful. All right, here we got, I recruited my son as a helper, and he's gonna shout if there's fuel coming out, because underneath here now, we've got the fuel line right there. And so now I'm gonna go put air pressure into the fuel tank and see if we can force fuel out and effectively purge any air out of that line. So let's see what happens.
It almost got on your microphone. Thankfully, I got my screwdriver in here.
Sweet. All right, we got lots of fuel flowing now. That's a good sign. I think that might have been our problem. So I'm going to stop filming and cover that up and get it put back together. Ready to go. Sweet. That's it.
Yeah, because it was like, at first it was like a piddle, and like you could tell there was still probably some air in it, and then it started doing better. And then as soon as you like super cranked it, that's when I was all like, all right, we'll let them super crank it and see what happens, and then go from there. Just behind the scenes of boondocking here. We've got controls galore in here. And the man himself fixing everything.
All right, good news. Put the pressure to the tank, purged the air out of the line. Zach, is there any fuel coming out?
There's a lot of fuel coming out.
Good news, no air, lots of fuel. So we're gonna flip this camera around, prime it, and see if we can make a generator run. Right after I put the carburetor and the fuel line back together. That's probably important. Let's do that now. Okay, don't do what I did. I put the plastic all back together and forgot the gasket that I even pointed out. Don't forget the gasket in the earlier part. Mine happens to be labeled. I don't know that everyone would be, but it's still factory. Shows you the top and the front. And you'll take note of that little shape right there in the hole. So it kind of makes it self-explanatory which way that gasket goes back on. So now that that's back on, we'll put this back in and do it again. Okay, it's a little tricky putting the airbox back in. You have to kind of slide it back in behind the green cover first, then over the top of your bolts. Don't try and get it on top of your bolts while it's still out here. And behind that right there is a breather tube on the backside, a rubber one. You need to make sure that breather tube gets over the back of the airbox, and then down here that this slots down into the fresh air intake. Once you're confident that everything's snapped back in the right location, then you can go back and put your bolts in here and your two nuts up here. We'll do that now. Okay, everything back together, fuel line, check. Altitude at the same setting it was previously. This little knob is to adjust for altitude. So I put it back where it was at the beginning. And air filter, everything's back on. So here we go, moment of truth. Sounds better already. It's immediately made a picked up fuel sound. Well, I can hear fuel going in the carburetor too. All right, victory. I love it when something's actually easy. So it turns out, I think what happened is I probably ran out of fuel, didn't realize I was totally out of fuel, or had it on level and got a little bit of air in the line. And then the thing just cavitated and wouldn't grab suction because it had air in the line. So even though I went and replaced the fuel filter, I still did not solve the air in the line problem. So this little repair today, pushing air through the fuel tank, out the line, purged that air and got us back in business. I love that because that was easy, and other than some time, it was basically free. And free is my favorite price when it comes to repairs. Hope you found this helpful. Maybe it gets you out of a pinch in a situation you're in with your generator. Even if it's not the exact same model, it could be the same problem that you run into. So hope it's helpful. If you like this, be sure to check out some of the other videos we made, like this great tutorial about how to pump poo out of your RV so that you can empty your black tanks even when you don't want to move your RV. It's going to pop up somewhere over here, here. You know the drill. Subscribe, like, all that good stuff. See you next time.